Well, hello there. Welcome to the show. If you have been a longtime listener, first of all, thank you. You might remember an early episode with Amanda Jefferson. So Amanda is a tech and productivity coach. She's a TEDx speaker, and she's host of the top-rated Good Enough-ish podcast. Most importantly for today's conversation, she is an expert on digital clutter. So you know what I'm talking about. All those bad photos on your phone, all the browser tabs that you always have open because you're going to get to them later, and your desktop that's full of 6-month-old screenshots. Okay, so during that original interview, I talked about my digital clutter problems. And then I actually hired Amanda to help me out. You can kind of hear it happening during the original conversation. And dude, it was a game changer. And we have stayed in touch. So recently, Amanda sent an email to her clients about how to approach their digital environments today, when the news cycle is fast, furious, and I would say especially disturbing. So I really want to bring her back to talk about that and the role of our digital environments on our mental and our physical health. So we talk about stuff like what's more stressful, digital or physical clutter. You're going to hear what Amanda did for me, which has literally changed my day-to-day living experience so much. You're going to hear about the apps to delete off your phone. You're going to hear about Amanda's tools and systems to help you stay organized. And if you're one of those people who just loves, I don't know, going to Staples and getting different colored markers to whatever. It's not my jam, but I know some of you are just like, oh, give it to me. You're going to love this. Amanda, by the way, was one of the first certified in the world in the KonMari method. That's, the lovely Japanese woman who has you decide what sparks joy. So we talk about how do we go through our digital lives and decide what sparks joy. And also, Amanda gives me some coaching when I'm being a little bit of a whiny bitch about not wanting to get organized. And, some of this episode is also just Amanda and I figuring things out. Like, should you declutter and unfollow accounts that have political views that are different than yours and they make you really upset? Or, on the other hand, is it important to expose yourself to a diversity of opinions? And the fact is that most of us are spending a lot of our lives online. And this conversation is about getting really intentional with that space. Check it out.
Breaking news. Your dream life isn't going to happen because you made a vision board. You're going to need goals, grit, and some woo-woo shit. This podcast is about getting clarity on what you want, having the grit to do the actual work, and most importantly, constantly training your brain to be your bitch. Ready to be inspired? Here is your host, best-selling author, Una Duncan.
Hey, Amanda, thank you so much for coming back.
I'm so glad to be here. You know, you're one of my favorite people.
Oh, thank you. Well, I am grateful to you every day because, guys, Amanda relieved like little irritations that were so little that I was ignoring them and just being like, oh, that's just the way life is. Like, you just have to deal with this annoying thing. For example, in my case, and you guys are all going to be like, what? I couldn't deal with my passwords. Like, my password manager thing wasn't working. So I always had to reset my password. I know everyone's cringing so hard, but I really could not deal with it. And there was just some things I'd just given up accessing because I didn't know how to break into them. Anyway, Amanda came in and fixed that situation for me and also taught me how to, for example, use, what's it called? My bar at the top there, Amanda.
Chrome bookmarks?
No, the thing where I have the bookmarks.
Bookmarks, yeah. I was like,
what else are you talking about? Bookmarks so that I don't have to have every tab open all the time.
Groundbreaking stuff. I know. I think you were maybe one of the first podcast hosts that I talked with when I had first pivoted to digital decluttering. And you were the first of many podcast hosts to hire me. Because what happens is that we get into these conversations and I start sharing these tips. And then I see the faces of these hosts like glaze over and be like, can we just stop recording? And can I share a screen? And can we get in there? Like,
Totally. I was playing hard to get too. I was telling you how bad my situation was. And you were like, I really want to see it.
I'm like, no, can you share a screen like right now? Seriously.
Okay, awesome. Well, today, guys, I want to get deeper with Amanda about digital decluttering. And the reason I wanted to bring her back is because at the time of recording, I mean, I'm sure we'll have all passed by the time you listen to this, but at the time of recording, it's stressful times, dudes. It really is. And a lot of that is coming from our digital devices. So the first question I want to ask you, Amanda, is like, do you think it's true if I was to put out there that maybe digital clutter stresses us out as much as physical clutter? Like, how does that digital overload impact our physical and our mental health?
I think absolutely. In fact, the Cleveland Clinic came out with a study that showed that, in fact, it does affect us as much as physical clutter, if not more. And I think the thing is, it's increasing all the time because it's just the magnitude of it. Like when I talk to people about the number of photos and emails and files, they're talking like in the tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands. And so it's just getting faster and more. It's like physical clutter is finite and it feels like, okay, there is an end to how much is in this drawer, but digital clutter just feels like this big black hole to a lot of people. It's super stressful.
Do you know what? It feels like that as a consumer, absolutely. But even as a, I don't want to call my content digital clutter, but as a content creator. So for example, in my clients who pay me, I find that we have to send more communications in order for them to understand what the plan is, because they're like, oh, I didn't know, you know what I mean? You have to send more emails, like if there's a event or whatever. No, really, it's happening now. No, now we gotta, hey, there's an event happening. You really have to send more communications in order for people to get, understand something. Instagram, for example. Gosh, the most recent recommendation is to post 3 times a day because there is so much that in order for anyone to get a snippet of anyone's attention, you have to post 3 times a day. So I'm thinking even as a creator, the digital amount of stuff is just, it's exponential. And I think it really is on both sides of the equation. It's driving everyone crazy because the more there is, the more there is.
And I think we're seeing a bit of a full circle moment where people are like, and scene, like this is enough. You know what I mean? Like I see people taking like 3-year breaks off of Instagram, or I see people moving to like a platform like Substack, which is a little bit more like an old fashioned newsletter, or a newspaper, So I think people are, it's getting to be too much because just like you said, I mean, even people that I like and admire and want to follow, I'm getting like 6 emails a day from them. Like last day for the flash sale, 5 minutes till the flash sale is over. I'm like, I love you, honey, but please stop.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I have to do kind of the same to remind my people,
I mean, and that's the thing. Or teachers, and whenever I mentioned that and someone said, oh yeah, teachers are constantly saying, we cannot get parents to open emails and we don't know how to communicate very important stuff like come grab your kid or whatever.
Your kid is on the curb.
Yes. How many emails do we have to send for you to actually understand that?
Yeah.
So it's just the overload. Would you say that's it? It's the amount, or is it the quantity or the quality of the digital content?
The quantity. Like one of the metaphors I'm like a woman of metaphors. And one of the ones that I've been using lately that I feel like really resonates with people is this almost like we're like goalies, like soccer goalies, and we're standing in the goal and we're just frozen. We're just standing in the middle and there's like 1,000 shots on goal happening and the score is 1,000-0 and we're just like, I give up. You know what I mean? And so I think what I try to do with my clients is like, okay, let's set up more of a defense so that you're not getting 1,000 shots on goal coming at you, right? Like let's slow down the flow of all of this stuff that's coming in. And then let me train you as a better goalie to be like, not this, not this, not this. Oh, this one can come in. I mean, a goalie doesn't want anything to come in, but like it's sort of a gatekeeper, you're a bouncer of your own goal to say like, yes, this stays. So I think but what the problem is that to stop that flow, it takes some intentional actions. It takes, okay, we're going to sit down here. And even if it's for 20 minutes, we're going to unsubscribe from a bunch of things, or we're going to name things, but a lot of people, they're just like, I don't have time to do that. I'm just going to keep standing here in the middle of this goal. Yeah. And hope that I see something important and catch it when it's going by me,
Totally. So you mentioned unsubscribing from newsletters, and God, have you ever watched the Mindy Project?
No, anyway, I haven't ever watched it, but I know what you're talking about.
It's super, super cute. And one scene, she gives her phone to a little kid to basically kind of entertain the kid for a bit. She's like, here you go, play with this, unsubscribe me from everything.
Yeah, because we all get to the case of the shoulds. You know what I mean? It's just like, 6 ways to get better sleep and 9 tips for eating more vegetables. And you're like, yes, I need all of that. I want all of that. So I'll read that. I'll read that. I'll read that. And then we just kind of collapse at the end of the day. We haven't read any of it. So we have like the case of the shoulds. Like we want to consume all of that, but it's physically, mathematically impossible.
Well, that's one thing. I think that people, we get so attached to our physical stuff and we think, ooh, but what if I need it someday? Do you think it's the same with digital stuff? We feel so kind of like, ooh, what if I really need that app? I don't want to take it off my phone just in case I do end up being, in Europe and need to convert my currency or whatever, like,
next time I'm in Serbia,
yeah,
I'm really
exactly. I might need this translator. Or, what if, what if I delete the best picture ever of me at my perfect angle? Or I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, do you think we have the same sort of, attachment issues that we do with our digital stuff as our physical stuff?
For sure. Like I have this one phone app that I really like for the iPhone that's called CleanerKit. And it will not only help you identify like duplicates, but it will also help you identify similar photos. So if I took 20 photos of you in front of a tree, it would be like, we think this is the best one of Una. Do you want to delete the rest? But I have clients who are moms and it's like 50 pages of their toddler with spaghetti sauce on their face. And they're like, I want all of them. They're like, because this expression is just slightly different than this expression. So totally a lot of that. But I think one of the ways that I can help people and one of the ways that I helped people with their physical stuff was just really helping them to get a lot more ruthless and just be like, okay, let's just give ourselves some tough love here. Like, do we really need 50 pictures of them with spaghetti sauce on their face?
Particular moment?
Right.
And how do I know that you ascribe to the Marie Kondo method, KonMari method, where if I'm remembering it correctly, and you tell me if I got this wrong, you pick up that sweater and you hold it like it's a physical, tangible thing. You hold it to you and you ask yourself if it brings you joy. So how do I do that with the 23rd picture of my kid with spaghetti sauce on their face?
That's a really good question. So I was one of the first trained certified KonMari consultants. And so for about 6 years, I helped people with their physical clutter. And with the digital clutter, it's really hard because it's like, does the email about my cable bill from 6 years ago spark joy? I think it's almost kind of like what we're trying to achieve with our digital stuff. It is that spark joy thing. So it's sort of like, because for taking an example of that, the 50 photos of the toddler with the spaghetti, what's sparking joy is that moment, right? Oh my God, he's so cute. And look at the spaghetti sauce and da-da. And so if we just choose one of those, we can capture that moment. We can tell the story of that moment in one of those pictures. But what doesn't spark joy is a phone that's constantly full and you can't find anything. The storage is full, so you can't even capture the next spaghetti sauce face moment because your phone is full and it won't let you. So it's sort of like the clutter is robbing you of future joy, if that makes any sense.
Right. And it makes sense with physical too. And I completely see it with digital. So I'm wondering also why one of the reasons we hang on to so much digital clutter is we don't have the digital organization systems normalized yet. Or is that just me? You're allowed to say, Una, that's totally you. I've been on a lot of computers and you're the one that's
No. And that's actually why I try to talk a lot in metaphors, because I think the digital space is so confusing for people that when I can explain things in a way that helps relate it to their physical space, suddenly people are like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, so for example, with email, I always explain to people, okay, imagine that your inbox is your desk. So if you have 30,000 emails in your inbox, that is 30,000 pieces of paper on your desk. Okay. And then next to your desk, you have a trash can and you have a filing cabinet. Now, when you keep hitting archive, like, I don't know what to do with this thing. It's essentially like you throwing a piece of paper in the top of the filing cabinet. Just like, I don't know. Versus if you put a label on something or put it in a folder, you are essentially putting it in your digital filing cabinet in a nice little beautiful folder where you can find it later. So I think people, trying to explain to people, you're archiving a whole bunch of stuff that you're just overstuffing this filing cabinet with things that you're never going to need. But here are the 10 little cute file folders that you do need with your T4s and all of that other stuff. And so when you can relate it to a physical thing, they're like, oh, I get it. Okay, I get this, right?
Yeah. When you're talking about the labeling of the things, I had such a like teenager reaction of like, oh God, that'll take forever. And I know, and I recognize that because I know that like when I suggest like, hey, maybe you want to do some meal prep so you eat healthy later.
Yes.
People are like, oh my God. And I'm like, it's actually not that hard. You just got to get into the habit of it.
Right.
So can you give me that speech? Cause I feel it about when you talk about organizing my inbox in different folders and stuff. Give me the speech that I need to hear about how it's actually going to save me time, and I should stop being a whiny bitch about it.
Well, I think it's a bit similar to your speech about why you should meal plan. Like I would probably say things like make it fun. Like you can actually assign colors to your different folders. And so like you can make them kind of pleasant to look at. Like you can make it really easy. You can easily drag and drop. Like keep it simple. You don't have to make, 17 meals for the week. You can make grilled chicken and hard-boiled eggs and chop some veggies and call it a day, right? So I'm not talking about creating some 25 folder structure. I'm talking about creating like one folder for action needed, one folder for T4s, one folder for maybe online orders. So you can track all of those, right? And just I also talk about kind of gamifying it. Like, so in your case, you might be like, okay, for meal prep, let's see if you can beat the timer. How much can you do in 60 minutes? I might say the same, like put on a timer for 25 minutes. Your current, list is at or your inbox is at 1,000. I challenge you to get it to 500. Right. So like all of that, just sort of gamifying, making it fun, making it easy, doing your future self that favor.
Right? Yes. Yep. No, for sure.
I still see you making the teenager face though.
Yes.
She's literally stomping her feet. Like, I don't want to. But then also like it's some accountability. Like, so a lot of times, so that's why when I work with people, the body doubling really works because we're sitting there and I'm like, okay, Jane, we're going to create your, whatever, your folder. And then they start putting things in there. And then they're kind of like, can you shut up so I can keep doing this? Because I've gotten them in the zone. So a lot of times it's just really about you're in the zone and you're like, okay, I get this. This is fun. I'm dragging, I'm dropping, I'm doing this, so it's kind of like getting people started and then letting them go on their way.
Okay. I love it. And I'm guessing you have a million other ideas on how to be the goalkeeper. And I'm going to ask you about that, but I want to shift quickly to like media. Because like I was saying, it's a bit of a shitstorm right now. And you open up your phone and you start scrolling and it's just, horror show after horror show. Yeah. And how can we organize this? Because I feel like it's a wide open goal there. We've got very few protections in that arena.
I think what I've been trying to do lately is just kind of take more of a go deep versus go wide approach instead of me just sort of being like, what is everything that's happening? And let me take it in from all of these different sources. I've just identified sources that I like and that I trust and that I know are going to give me kind of that deep journalism that I'm looking for and help me really understand. So I mentioned on a top 3 recently, somebody that I really like is Jessica Yellen on Instagram. And she also has a Substack that you can pay for every month, which I really appreciate because it allows us to support their small team. Like she's such a small team. She had a Zoom meeting with all of her paid subscribers. I think there were 500 people on the call and she didn't even have a staff member that was available to her at that time to be like fielding Q&As and muting people.
Right.
Me, I like to be the hero, Una. And so I was like, Jessica, I will help. I will. Of course she can't see me in the midst of 500 other people, but these are like real scrappy kind of news organizations that are out there. Another one that I just talked about in my newsletter today is Wired, like Wired magazine. You would think like that's where you go to read about, the latest earbuds or whatever, but they're more talking about, what's happening in our government agencies and national security and how that's affecting, people. And so they're doing really deep dive journalism. So I think it's about kind of going deep versus going wide. And then it's really about being ruthless and culling your social media feeds and things like that so that it's just because now, they're reporting on, 2 small planes crashing in Kansas because they know that everybody is in this plane crash frenzy. So they're trying to feed that frenzy and that's not healthy for anybody right now.
So when you say to cull your social media, what I have some sort of criteria that I look at specifically because what concerns me right now is misinformation, medical and health misinformation, wellness and misinformation. So it's kind of my area of focus right now, but what would you say for general mental health? What are some criteria that you would recommend? You got to start culling anything that is what?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at your chapter where you talked about this, and it was like you had some really great questions, which was, do you follow any Instagram accounts that make you feel shitty about yourself? And so like that kind of there, like that's the opposite of spark joy. So, I feel like if there's somebody that always just has the perfect home or the perfect life or the perfect abs or the perfect whatever, and they just always make you feel like shit, then bye-bye, So, and then you could also find communities that kind of replace that for you. Like I just kind of discovered this whole community called like mid-sized fashion. And those are people that look a lot more like me. And so instead of me, feeling like, oh, I've gained all this weight and look at all these little skinny people, I've got like my mid-sized hotties that are making me laugh and inspiring me and things like that. So I think at the end of the day, it's just really about, does this post inspire me, make me laugh, inform me in a way that doesn't make me feel anxious, or does it make me feel like crap?
Yeah. And I think I've always sort of been on that, like, yeah, if it makes you feel like crap, if it makes you feel envious or less than. And now I feel like we need to add, does it make me anxious? And does it make me angry? Because I think a lot of people are because that's like people being angry and upset, and controversy is the ultimate algorithm grab, isn't it? So I feel like, I don't know. It's really tough though, because there's accounts that I follow that have opinions that trigger me very much. And yet I feel like if I completely curate my feed so that it's all things that I agree with, then I'm making my world a little smaller.
Sure. Yeah, I think it definitely is a balance. And I think we have a good sense of things. Like I find myself, my big fatal flaw is getting in the weeds of the comments. Reading the comments. It's just like, I think I just kind of get astonished by like the depths of humanity, like just the things that come. And it's just like our natural attraction to like a little bit of drama and all that kind of stuff. But it's just it's so toxic right now. And I think sometimes I think that the danger is, I'll be like, oh, I really need to blah, blah, blah. So I pick my phone up for a very specific reason. And then I see some sort of notification and it pulls me down into this rabbit hole. And then 45 minutes later, I'm like, I have absolutely no idea what that original thing was that I picked up my phone to do, So that's something that I kind of need to get under control. But I agree with you. I think it is about finding the balance. But I mean, like so many of us, how many hours a day do we spend scrolling? Like how many workouts could you fit in in that time? How many meditation sessions? How many walks around the block? Like how many dance parties?
Oh, totally. It's funny because you mentioned that you pick up your phone to do one thing and then you get sucked into something else. And I found that so often when I'm like, okay, I need some phone free time. That's it. 6 p.m. putting my phone away. That's it. I'm done for the day. Okay. Now I'm going to watch a movie with my family. Ah, shit, to turn on the TV. I need my phone. or, to, whatever, look to see if the grocery store is still open. I need my phone. So I just find that I have to keep going back to it.
Yeah.
And my question for you is, do you know of any situations where actually buying something physical helps you do some digital decluttering? Like if I had, a physical remote, a physical newspaper, a physical, instead of because I read on the Kindle app on my phone, that's how I consume most of my books, or in the Audible app, whereas if I had, physical books, then I wouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I think it would be a good idea to be able to turn your TV on without your phone. That might be a start.
Yeah.
It's hard because I'm such a techie and I love tech. And so I think, a lot of times people, when they hear about what I do, they think I'm talking a little bit more about like digital detox and like spend less time on your phone. And for me, it's not really so much about that. It's kind of like, I was thinking about another analogy today. Like if you were a carpenter and you had a hammer and that was your tool, I wouldn't be telling you use less hammer. You know what I mean? I think it's just about being smart, because this is a tool that we have in our hand. It's like a superpower. It's a supercomputer tool that we have in our hand. And it makes so many aspects of our lives easier, like checking to see if the grocery store is open and things like that. So it's just about figuring out how for you to run it like, have the hammer not be bossing the carpenter around, but the carpenter be bossing the hammer around. You know what I mean? So I'm all for using it for every possible thing. Like things like chat GPT and things like that have made my life abundantly easier. So I find myself thinking less about how to use my tech less, but more about I think really just calling out just like the stupid stuff, like scrolling Instagram comments. I don't mind if I have to pick my phone up to see what time the grocery store closes,
Do you ever, because, we get these reports saying you spent, 8 hours on your phone today or whatever,
Right.
something outrageous. And you're like, oh my God, that can't possibly be true. Do you have any way that we could do a self audit of being like, yes, but 4 of those hours were me doing, listening to an audiobook that really helped me, or, you know what I mean? To do a self audit of you're saying, a lot of people are thinking, that's it, I need to spend less time on my phone. And you're like, well, actually, you need to spend more intentional time. It's not necessarily less. It's about having it not suck you into a vortex that you don't want to be in.
Yeah.
So is there any way that we can do a self-audit to figure out how much of the time we're spending intentionally versus being sucked in?
Yeah,
or distracted?
I don't know. I mean, there's so many good apps that are out there. You had even mentioned one in your book that I use called Freedom. And there's another one called Moment. And I think it will allow you to track a little bit more exactly what you're using things for. And I mean, a lot of people like Laura Vanderkam and people like that actually have time trackers that you can use, these little templates that you can use to log in the amount of time. I think to get back to your question before about physical things, for example, 6 p.m. for me is kind of a little early for me to put my phone down, but 8:39, then I really feel like I can put the sucker to bed, and then I will only read a physical library book. I've started going to the library, and I love just the crinkle of the plastic and, and it gives me a good accountability to get the book done. So things like that, I think just finding that good balance instead of being 6 p.m. and then it's crap, I gotta turn the TV on, something more reasonable. My friend had a brilliant business idea, which is sheet sets should come with a little sleeping bag that matches for your phone.
Totally.
Wouldn't that be so cute?
That's funny.
Yeah.
We're talking about the balance between digital clutter and physical clutter. And I know of a lot of examples of how we've moved from physical clutter to digital clutter. For example, a friend of mine, as soon as their kid brings home some art from school, they're like, take a picture and then chuck it. And so then they, spend some time with their kid looking at all the digital archives of their beautiful artwork, or not. I don't know, but at least they don't have the mom guilt of throwing out that, hand turkey or whatever. So, and for example, books, like I said, I don't have anything like the library I used to because now I get all my stuff on Kindle. How can people decide where they want their clutter? or is there an argument of it actually doesn't matter if it's digital or physical, it's still clutter? You're still consuming more than you need to.
I think it's really a matter of what works for people. So I was actually thinking a lot about sort of these apps and things that I've been using for my physical health and habits and things like that. And I think it really just depends on your brain and what works for you. Because I think for some people, for example, they cannot imagine not having a huge bookshelf filled with books. That just sparks so much joy for them. One person might be like, oh my God, that's so much clutter. You should have a Kindle. And it's well, I don't want to have a Kindle. I really like my library. Whereas for other people, they travel all the time. And so it makes so much sense for them to have it on their Kindle. I have books that I call them my 3 format books that I literally buy in Audible, in Kindle form, and in hard copy because I'm gleaning so much information from this book that I want to be able to absorb it. And because I have ADHD, so I kind of need 3 different ways to absorb things sometimes. And that to me isn't clutter. I have this book in 3 different ways, but I'm squeezing all the juice out of this thing, right? So I think the definition of clutter is really just more what stresses you out. One person's bookcase that's beautiful is another person's clutter.
Absolutely. Do you know, actually, I heard somewhere that the best way to really absorb something is to listen to it and read and slide your finger along at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Kinesthetic, you're listening, you're watching, all that stuff at the same time. But also I feel gosh, the reason we need that is because we're being pummeled with so much information.
Right.
To me, the requirement to have that amount of stimulation in order to focus is almost a byproduct of the amount of digital and world clutter that's coming at us all the
For
time.
sure. I don't know
Yeah.
if this has started happening to you yet, but I have to start watching shows with subtitles. Has this
Yeah.
started happening to you?
Because your mind
crazy.
drifts.
Yeah, it's like it's like I can't understand. I don't know. Maybe it's a menopausal thing or something, but it's just like I feel like I can't understand them. I need to read it too. I am a visual person. We watch a lot of like really complicated spy shows.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just like, wait, who's he working for? And is he the Russian or is he the Croatian or is he the
What I have noticed, and it's I spoke to a guest, Chris Bailey, who wrote a book called Calm Your Mind, and he talks about, how we're requiring more and more dopamine to just feel like minorly entertained. And he talks about, the sort of spectrum of stimulus. And, now, and I've noticed this for myself, when I watch a show, I'm always also kind of scrolling, like looking at fashion or like light social media or whatever while I'm watching a show. And if I was to be like, okay, no, I did want to watch this.
Yeah.
Just put down my phone. I'm like, this feels not quite stimulating enough. So
I
I'm noticing
know.
that I want that higher level of stimulation.
Yeah, there's a funny Instagram meme going around that's like shows somebody laying on their couch watching TV, scrolling on their phone, and they're like, watching my big screen while scrolling on my little screen as a reward for staring at the medium screen all day.
Oh, no, that's horrible.
It's so horrible. Yeah.
Okay, just back to digital decluttering. I was just talking to Melanie, who's also in the MFA, who is an expert on design, on home design. And one of the tips that she gave me in our recent conversation was that anytime anything enters her house, she has an exit plan for it. Like she buys a new pair of shoes. She's like, okay, so what's going to happen with these shoes when I'm done with them?
Wow.
And I wonder, if we need that for our digital things, like if we're downloading some like 1997 digital product, we're like, this is going to live on my desktop forever. What's happening? I'm going to read it. And then what happens to it?
Yeah, no, I really like that. Yeah, because I think the companies they are making money off of this idea that we do not have that plan. It's just like ran out of space, and it's just like 99 cents a month, $2.99 a month to get 3 terabytes. And you're just like, oh my God, yes, click yes, because I don't know what to do. It's really, really difficult. And I think, that's one of the reasons why I'm having these live workshops right now. So I'm getting away from, I was doing these sort of on-demand courses. But what that requires is for somebody who's super busy and super stressed out and super all over the place to have the discipline to sit in a chair and watch videos about how to organize your email. And I don't know many people these days that have the discipline or interest in doing something like that. So I just started launching these live workshops instead, where it's hands-on and you get it done in the moment. So like our first one was in January was like organizing your photos, where I was putting timers on and I was like, okay, everybody, like you have to decide of the 50 spaghetti face pictures, which is staying and which is going. And they did it in real time last month because I think so many people are so anxious about all the wildfires happening. I did it about, let's get all your important documents. And it was like, literally bring them together and scan them. And we're going to do that together. So I'm trying to provide spaces for people where it's like, 90 minutes, we're going to get this done and we're going to make it fun. And I'm going to put music on and there's going to be timers and I'm going to be cheering you on because we're just all so overwhelmed. So I think like, to have that discipline of being somebody like, okay, I just saved this PDF. I've got to have a plan for it. I think people just need a lot more hand holding right now because it's just really overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, what strikes me is that, so that means that people are paying you. And I think the service is amazing. But what I'm astonished by, but not astonished by, is the fact that what people are really paying you for is the ability to focus. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like this is something they could theoretically do on their own, but they won't. So they're like, can I please pay you to make me focus on this for a little while? And the reason we can't focus is again, because we've got all this stuff coming at us.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that really gets back to really understanding yourself and understanding what works for you. Like I'm just somebody that knows I need accountability. And so I have to come up with systems that are going to give me that accountability. And so if somebody's paid, $29 to show up and they're like, well, I paid and it's 90 minutes and I don't want to scan my birth certificate right now, but I'm here and we're doing this,
Yeah.
So yeah, people just need help focusing for sure.
It's a great service. Okay, Amanda, I know, sorry, I've been rambling on a little bit, but I know that you came ready to share with us some of your best soccer goalie tactics to deflect some of the bazillion balls coming at us every day.
Yeah.
Did you want to get into any of those?
Yeah, I've got a whole list over here. So this is going to be a 9-hour episode. No.
Excellent. Good.
All right, I'm going to pull out some of my favorites. One of the things that I would definitely recommend is creating on your phone like a page of apps or a line of apps that almost sort of mirrors like the healthy habits that you want to have every day, right? So it's like, okay, there's my MFA app. There's my Calm meditation app. Here's my Lose It app where I track my food. Like, so they're all kind of together. And I used to even organize them in order. Like, okay, I do my MFA workout first, and then I do my meditation, Calm. So that's a really nice thing that you can do. The other thing I really recommend is like you were talking about getting your Chrome bookmarks organized. So for example, for like MFA, I have a folder and I can click on it and I can go to that week's meal plan or that month's meal plan, that month's exercises, like the Facebook group, because if it's not easy, you're not going to do it, right? So making things as easy as possible. Also, like, I think any app, if you're the type of person that doesn't want to break the chain, like doesn't want to lose a streak, that's really, really working for me right now. So one of the fun things that I decided I was going to do in 2025 was learn Portuguese.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh, it's so hard. But I have like a 40-day streak going on Duolingo right now, and I do not want to lose that streak. Same with like the Lose It app where I'm tracking what I eat every day. I've got like a 40-day streak going there, and I don't want to lose the streak. So I think, does that work for your brain?
Mm-hmm. It does for a lot of people. A lot
Right.
of people are precious about the streak for sure.
Right. Or like your steps. I really like, do you have an Apple Watch? Do you use an Apple Watch?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one of the things I don't like about the Apple Watch is that you can't natively see how many steps you've gotten every day by looking at the Apple Watch. You can see the rings, but you can't see number of steps.
I can.
You can?
I mean, yeah, I go to the rings and then I scroll down and okay, I'm hoping it's not disgraceful. No. Okay. So far 9,205.
Okay. I have that minus the 0. At the end. You're like, maybe Amanda, you should put the tech down.
Well, I went for a run this morning. That would not be the case normally at 11 a.m.
Okay. Yeah. So mine is slightly different. What I'm saying is I can actually look at my watch and see, like, I don't have to do that tap and scroll that you just did. Right. So it's like you install an app called the Steps app. And then you can be able to see it right on your watch face, which I really like. So just little things like that. Like if it's motivating to you to see that number, to be like, ooh, I better add a 0 to this.
So make your healthy habits really visible right there.
Very visible.
Yes. I have a little tip to add to that, actually.
Okay,
Someone showed me this a little while ago. They said on your iPhone, make the first screen blank and then upload the picture that represents what's most important to you right now. So my iPhone, I have to scroll in order to see apps. I have to go through to the next page because my first page is 100% just my picture.
That's amazing. It's kind of like the vision board that that's how we sort of got to know each other, was by me sharing my vision board.
That's right. Oh, that is right. Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember that story, Amanda? Tell them that story.
Okay, so let's see. I had just joined the MFA a couple months prior, maybe, and I was in the Facebook group, and I had just made a vision board on Canva, and
it was beautiful.
And you were like looking all hot and sexy in the middle of it, because you on my vision board were just sort of representing health and this new program that I had started. And then next to it, I had basically a picture that represented Spain, because I love Spain and I wanted to spend more time there. And I think like a week after I created this vision board, I got an email from you about this retreat in Mallorca.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you kidding me? So I signed up, And then I shared my vision board on the Facebook group, and you saw a picture of me speaking. And so you were like, what do you speak about? And then you invited me on to be on the podcast.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then he came on the retreat and we got to know each other there. And she was the hero. Amanda loves to be the hero. If someone needs a Band-Aid, that girl will sprint to her room to make
It's
sure.
so obnoxious. It's so obnoxious. One of the best days of my life, Una, was dancing on that catamaran in the middle of the Mediterranean. I mean, unbeatable. It was amazing.
It was so fun. Okay. All right. Well, let's help people with their digital decluttering. What's the next tip you have for them?
Okay. You and I really like the Day One app for journaling.
Oh, I love that app. Yes. Talk about it.
Yeah. So, and we discovered that on the retreat as well. Day One is just a really lovely, clean, kind of minimalist feel app where you can have all kinds of different journals and things that you write in. And what I really love about it is that when you journal, it'll even write at the bottom your location, the temperature, the time at your location. So I could actually go back and look at what I wrote in Mallorca and see where I was and what was going on. So I don't know, talk about your experience with the Day One app and how you use it.
Yeah, I love the Day One app. So for years, I've had a 5-year journal where you would flip to like July 29th or whatever. And then you have year 1, year 2. And so you can it's really cool because you can go back and reference. And I dragged this 5-year journal around the world with me. Loved it. Loved referencing what I was doing 2 years ago that day, whatever. However, it was absolutely dog-eared. I usually can't read my own writing. So it was not, and hauling this thing around, it was not super practical. So when I found out about the Day One app, it's amazing, really easy to upload pictures or audio that really kind of takes you back to the place. But also what I love about it too is, right, you can organize different journals. So I have my day-to-day journal. I also have a kids journal where I will really quickly put like some funny thing that they said or whatever, some like cute little touching moment, but usually it's funny things. And then when we're doing long road trips, my kids love it if I read them the kid journal and say, hey, you used to call yogurt Dodo or whatever, like some little thing.
Right.
And they love those stories. And I also have one that, what do I call it? It's like my magic folder where I put down like every time I notice like, wow, there was an amazing coincidence, or I remembered to call, or I thought about a friend and then they called me, or like anything like that just makes me feel like I'm blessed and I live in a magical world because I love that feeling.
Yes, I love that. And I think like the joy that you were emanating just talking about this app is exactly the type of thing that we're talking about. Like it's this tool. Like I'm not going to be like, no, you really need to be spending less time on Day One, right? It's this tool that's filling you with so much joy, right? And so, letting that be a tool that we use all the time. Yeah, I would like to I need to get in a better habit of figuring out like a comprehensive habit tracker where every day I'm tracking, I did this and I walked and I did it. And I got 6,000 steps and I haven't found anything that works for my brain yet. Do you have a habit tracker that works for your brain, like physical or digital?
No. I mean, I use the Fit Feels Good app for my physical habits.
Yeah.
But as far as like, what would be other habits? Did I remember to call my mom or whatever, like other things that you intend to do.
Right.
I don't have tracking systems for those kinds of things.
Yeah. I think that's something that I'm still sort of struggling with to figure out. But I think one of the other apps that I really like when it comes, what I think can be really helpful for us right now for connection with people is WhatsApp and specifically voice memos. So do you do voice memos with people?
Yeah. I have strong feelings about voice memos though.
Oh.
Well, I think they're a bit of a power move. Well, here's what I'll say. I love exchanging voice memos with friends,
Yes.
But sometimes I have to pause because I'm like, ooh, I'm not somewhere where I can play a 5-minute story and hear audio right now. Whereas if it was a text, I could fire something back. The reason I think that it's a bit of a power move is because it's super easy for the sender to be like, blah, 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 get the T4s and put that on my desk or whatever, whatever. But then the receiver it takes more time for the receiver to listen than it would for them to read and skim. So that's why I think it's a little bit of, it's fine. Like I said, it's fine between friends and it's fine to quickly communicate you're driving or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that one does have to acknowledge that the receiver, it requires more time and a private space from them, which is a bit more of an ask than sending a text.
Yes. And I completely agree that if anybody ever sent me a voice memo about T4s, I'd be real mad. I'd be like, no, this is not the place. I just find, I actually got a bunch of my buddies that I met in Mallorca on voice memos that hadn't done them before. And it is really lovely in the sense, because like, I feel like a lot of times if we're trying to catch up with each other, it's like, hey, Trish, how you been? I've been good. How have you been? And you don't get that depth. Whereas with her, she can be like, oh my God, my dad got his new car. And I'm like, well, and we're going back and we're talking about really, much more detail than you can go into with like, how you been? I have a best friend in Spain that like, we probably send 3 or 4 voice memos to each other a day. And it's like therapy, it's just the way that we connect. So
yeah, I have friends like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of my favorite apps for connection for sure.
For sure. And that's so great because sometimes people do that on social media and you're like, yeah, get off social media, get into WhatsApp so you can have a focused conversation instead of being distracted by all this stuff.
Yeah. My husband has a group because he's not on Facebook or anything. So they actually have a little WhatsApp group and they call their WhatsApp group Facebook. Because that's where they share pictures of the kids and pictures of the puppies and their voice memos. Nice. And I think that's really great. I think it's such a good use for that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. What's another one for us?
Okay. So some of the other ones that I really like that just make people's lives a lot easier, like just make life logistics easier. And I think especially for women that just tend to take on the mental load in so many different ways. I definitely think I feel very passionate about teaching people about ChatGPT and how to use it. You can use it for everything. It's just like Google on steroids. I mean, you can use it to be like, Una told me I have to meal prep for the week, but I don't want to, and I don't like vegetables. What should I do? And it'll be like, here, make this. Or I'm going to New York for the weekend with 2 toddlers on the Lower East Side, and I don't know what to do or where to bring. What suggestions do you have? And so in business, I use it all the time. Like I'm in this visibility challenge that I'm doing right now. So I had to do all these like grant application and speaking pitches and things like that. And my friend ChatGPT was like indispensable during that whole process, so just using the AI that's available to you just to like lessen the load on our brains a little bit.
It's such a good idea. I agree with you on that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then this is such a stupid tip, but I give this one all the time is the grocery list functionality on your iPhone. Do you know about this?
No.
Okay. So your phone has a native app called Reminders. And so a lot of people think it's just like a task app that iPhone has, but you can create a list that's called Reminders and you specifically have to tell it that it's a shopping list, I think. And then what happens is that when you add things to that list, it's going to automatically categorize it into the category. So if I write down bananas, it's going to put it in produce. If I write down milk, it's going to put it in. You can share that list. So I have that list shared with my husband and I'm always on my Apple Watch in the kitchen saying, add bananas to the shopping list, right? Or if I'm cooking.
Hey Siri, add bananas to the shopping list?
I press and hold the little button on my Apple Watch. And then the little Siri guy comes up. Is she talking to you?
Yeah.
I know we always have to be so careful when we're talking about her. But then she'll come up, you just press and hold, and then you say, add, bananas to the shopping list. So then it adds it. And I take the moment. So like when I was making cupcakes with Isabel the other day, we ran out of cupcake liners. So in that moment, do my future self a favor, add cupcake liners to the shopping list. Then like a week passes and my husband comes home from the grocery store and he has cupcake liners. And I'm like, oh my God, how did that happen? Because I, in my wisdom, in that moment, added it and he saw it. And he brought it home. One of my friends commented.
I would put that in my magic journal on day one.
Exactly. One of my friends commented on my Instagram post about that and was like, that's the sexiest thing I've ever heard. I was like, yeah, that's about the level of sexy.
That's pretty hot. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty hot. So just little things like that, like, just taking the load off of yourself of just like adding to the list, letting it categorize it for you, sharing it with somebody else so that things can happen a little bit more in autopilot versus like, oh, what do we need at the store?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good one. That
It's
is such a
sexy.
good one.
Yeah.
What, Amanda, do you have any rules that you personally follow to keep your digital life clutter-free, stress-free? Like, what are some of the boundaries and the rules that you've implemented or systems?
Yeah, I think the system that has worked really well for me is organizing my Gmail in a way and using something called priority inbox. I think I mentioned that I have ADHD. And so a lot of times the way our emails are structured, it's like a big lump. And I need the lump to be broken down more. So when you do Gmail priority inbox, you can divide it into like important and unread and starred and everything else. And so that gives me much more structured sort of buckets about where everything is. And I'm not an inbox zero type of person because I kind of don't understand how people actually achieve that every day. But I get itchy if I see my inbox creeping up to like 200, 300,
Yeah.
and I'll call it. I see you laughing because you're like 300. How about add a couple zeros? So that's a system that works really well for me. I think like calling my apps pretty often is a system that works for me. I also have a system, like I have a folder on my computer that's called just for quick saving. So it's like, ooh, and I want to show you this screenshot. That way I safely know that when I save something there, I don't ever need it again. I just needed a place to put it for a second. So then I can go back and easily clear that out.
When you said you clear apps often, what are the kind of apps that get cluttery on the phone that we should keep an eye out for?
It'll be like that restaurant in New York that if you download the app for, you order off the menu, or just like the Expedia app that you put on because you were going on this trip and you needed it. And,
The airline you took once.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so usually it will tell you, you can go into your storage settings and it'll give you the settings of and tell you which apps you haven't used recently. So you can go in and kind of clear those out.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
What are some other digital clutter culprits that people might not even realize are draining them? Like we talked about social, which is obvious. We talked about the news, talked about inbox. What are some other things? And we talked about photos. What are some other culprits where you're like, oh, you don't even realize this is probably clutter?
I think the tabs and the Chrome stuff, people just think well, isn't it the normal thing to do to just have 50 tabs open and keep them open until the end of time so that you don't forget that you were working on that thing? And so I think teaching people about Chrome bookmarks is usually something if I asked you, do you want me to teach you about Chrome bookmarks? You'd be like, no, I'm good. I don't, but then I teach people and they're like, oh my God. So I think that kind of stuff can be really helpful to people. I think
Are you also a one-tabber? You said you're not an inbox zero person, but are you a one-tab person?
No, I'm not a one-tabber, but I'm definitely, so I have two screens. Do you have two screens?
I do.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible for our brains to process just one screen. That's been life-changing for me, is having the two screen. And so usually I'll have kind of a whole, right now I have maybe 7 tabs open on this side. And then I have another Chrome one with 7 tabs open over there. But when I close them, it's either because I don't need them anymore or because I know that they're somewhere in my little Chrome bookmarks thing so that I can find them more easily. I'm also really passionate about teaching people how to use their Apple Watches, because these things are so cool and they can do so many things. And so many people have no idea even how to do the most basic thing. And when I teach them, it's mind blowing. It can make your life so much easier. Just everything from how do you do the timer, how to record an outside walk, 3 times a day, I'm saying set a timer for 12 minutes while I'm boiling hard-boiled eggs, or checking to see what time sunset is because I want to squeeze in a walk with my dog, or all that kind of stuff. And it's like my little assistant.
Agree. You know what I use my watch for the most is finding my phone.
Yes.
That's yeah. It's
and a lot of people don't even know that you can do that.
That's gold. Yeah.
And sometimes they just make it they make it complicated. For example, all these little things that are around the watch, those are called complications.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
No, why would they call it that?
So, right. So that really makes me not want to figure it out, because I'm like, well, that sounds very complicated. But teaching people, this is what a complication is and this is how you can change it. Really is really fun.
So Amanda, if someone's listening and they are completely overwhelmed with their digital life, what is the very first thing that they should declutter today, right now, before they put it off for one more day?
That's a really good question. I would say just start with whatever's stressing you out the most. So if it's your emails that are driving you crazy, if it's your photos, if it's your files, like there's no kind of one size fits all. Like what is causing, like for you, for example, when you reached out, you were like, I have login issues.
Yeah.
And then when we could remove the pain of that, then you could be like, okay, step 2, right? So like what's just driving you crazy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the good point. Good point. And I think there's probably a lot of people who heard you describe that focus hour where you really cheer people on, you put on the music and you're like, let's do it. Let's scan our stuff. I bet you there's so many people who need that. Can you tell people a little bit about your services and where they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, where they can find most things about me, they can just go to indigoorganizing.com and it'll navigate them to all the different, the one-on-one coaching that I provide and the on-demand courses and the Get It Done Club. And I'm super excited to announce I'm actually launching a YouTube channel and it's going to be called Technically Amanda. And that will definitely be live by the time this airs. So we're going to be doing a 7-day digital declutter challenge there where exactly what kind of stuff that you're talking about, well, they'll get these little bite-size how to declutter their digital life in 7 days.
So good. Amanda, you're going to kill with that.
I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so excited for you. Thank you so much for coming and having a chat with me about this stuff again. I think it's so valuable and such an area that people don't even realize is stressing them out.
Yeah, it's always so fun to be here. It's not as fun as a boat in the middle of the Mediterranean, but fun nonetheless.
That's awesome. Thank you again. Oh, I loved that conversation and I love Amanda so much. I really, really honestly do recommend her services. I don't get a kickback or anything. I'm just shouting out there. She's amazing. And I think that her Get It Done Club is absolutely genius, especially for those of us, I mean, probably all of us, who have a bunch of stuff in that important but not urgent category that we just keep kind of shoving off down the road. Anyone know anyone like that? Know anyone who loves to geek out with organizing stuff? Okay, either way, send them to this episode and I'll see you next week. Hey dude, thanks for listening. If you like this episode, make sure you're subscribed so you can get the next one. And by the way, if you rate and review this podcast, it really helps me get found by other people who need some goals, grit, and some woo-woo shit. And be sure to connect and DM me at Una Duncan on Instagram and let me know what you thought of the episode. Chat soon.